Hello and welcome to Gardening at 58 North. So in this video I'd like to give you guys an update on my geranium cuttings here. So it's been several months since I've taken the cuttings. It looks like most of them have taken, but it's still a bit early to tell. There's been some quite strong growth in some of them, so I'm pretty sure a few of them have definitely taken root, but it's late autumn now. What I need to do is separate them, put them into their individual pots, and then keep them somewhere slightly warmer over winter so they don't get frost damage. So there's three different varieties that I took cuttings of. The one with the darkest foliage seems to have done the worst. The leaves are quite small and the plants don't look too healthy. The second worst was this one here, which was green foliage variety but with a dark band. Some of these look like they've actually rotted off and died. Success rate hasn't been so good on them, and you can see there as well. But the one that's done the best is this variety here, which is almost completely green leaf. This one's grown lots, as has this one here. You can see it's got a good bit of growth. And they've all been flowering quite a lot as well. I have been deadheading them quite often, removing a lot of the flowers, because ideally we don't want energy going into flowers at this young stage. They're such small plants, we want all the energy going into roots and leaves and establishing a larger plant. Also, there is a bit of damage from some of the slugs as well, and there are vine weevils around, so hopefully not too many of the roots have been eaten off by vine weevil larvae. We'll just have to see. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to separate them all into separate pots. They're going into pots this size with just one cutting in each pot, instead of where at the moment there's probably about 5 cuttings in each pot. And my plan is, what I'm going to do is I've got this green wall system, and it takes 15cm pots. So I'm going to put these cuttings into 15cm pots. That way next spring I can put them into the green wall system and it should slot in nicely and we'll have a great display all summer long. I'll also have some other bedding plants in that green wall system as well, but for now I'm just getting these started because these take a little bit longer, and then next spring I'll buy some more bedding plants just to bulk up the numbers. But I'm going for geraniums, and these, as I say, won't be frost hardy, so they'll be in the greenhouse a little bit longer, but then I'll need to keep them in the conservatory over the coldest winter months just so they don't get frostbitten, and then they'll go out sometime early next spring, probably end of April, beginning of May. So this is the compost mix I'll be using. It's richer than the last one I used. The last one I used was just for the cuttings, so I used a compost mix which was slightly higher in perlite and lower in feed, just to make sure that the roots weren't burned by the higher feed concentration, and also to make sure that they had a really free draining mix so that the roots didn't rot. This time the older plants, they should be rooted, they're not cuttings. So the higher feed, more moisture retention as well, so they should grow better. There's less risk of them rotting off at this stage, so I can go for a higher moisture retention compost. This one though, I have also added some perlite and a tiny bit of loam compost. The reason being, when it comes to geraniums, or pelargoniums as these are called, they do come from slightly arid conditions, so they don't like it too wet, otherwise they will rot, especially over the winter time when they're going to be in the dormant period when they won't be growing much. So I have added a little bit of perlite as well, but generally it's free draining, water retentive mix. So it'll be interesting to see how these have all done. I'll probably mix some of the old compost into the new compost just to save on compost, because at the moment I'm a little bit short, and this compost shouldn't be a problem for this new mix. I will take out any dead material though. I'm just going to empty them out and see how they look. So you can see there already we've got some pretty good root systems starting to form in some of these, so I'm just going to tease them apart. I don't want to snap too many of the roots if I can help it. I don't want to shake off too much compost either, because it will damage the fine root hairs. But you can see there, that one's got a really nice root system, so that would definitely make a good plant. These two here, small root system. This one doesn't look too good at all. That one I'll probably put it back into a pot with other ones that are not looking too good, because it's 50-50 whether that will survive. Even though it's got a good root system, the top half has very few leaves. That'll be the same with this one. They'll go into the individual ones, because if one or two of them die, it's not a problem. Whereas if I put these into individual pots, the big chance of dying off, it's just taking up a lot of unnecessary space. So I'll put these in a smaller pot on their own. And this one as well, great root system, really nicely rooted, so these are ready for planting up. Now originally these were quite deep in the pot. Compost was up to here, but you can see they've only rooted at the bottom. So what I'll be doing is I'll actually be lowering the height of the compost. We don't want all that stem buried, but I'll just bury a small amount of stem just to give it a bit of stability so it doesn't fall over, probably burying it a couple of centimeters, but certainly not up to the 5 or 6 centimeters that it was originally. So I'll just be doing this with all the geraniums. I'll just be going through any ones that have a good root system and plenty of foliage on the top. What I'll be doing is I'll be taking off any dead material to make sure no rot spreads, any old leaves, and I'll be also taking off the flowers as well, or any new flower buds that are coming, because I don't want these to put any growth or energy into new flower buds. I just want them to focus on growing new leaves and establishing their root system. And with this old compost, as I say, there's very poor nutrients, so that's part of the reason these, although some of these plants have really good root systems, they don't have much top growth. That's because they were searching for the nutrients, so they put a lot of effort into their roots to try and get more nutrients, but they couldn't find the nutrients to then put on the top growth. Once these are in a richer mix, what will happen is that's going to change, and they're not going to have to search for nutrients anymore, and they're then going to put on much stronger growth. So as I say, I'm putting some of the old compost in here as well. I'm just going to mix it in. It shouldn't be a big problem. It's pretty similar mix, just slightly lower nutrients, and I might give them a bit of supplemental liquid feeding as well throughout the season, just to keep them well fed. So that's them now all separated and put into their own pots. I'm actually really happy with the results. There's many more with a good root system than I was expecting. There was only one or two which had absolutely no roots. You can see there's 2 pots where I've got several that are touch and go. So these 2 here, there's several touch and go cuttings there. They have roots, but they either have a good root system or almost no leaves, or they have almost no roots on the other end of the cuttings. So I'm not sure if these will survive, so I put these in individual pots. I was also worried I was going to run out of pots, and I've managed to just about find enough 15cm pots for all the cuttings. I will need to try and find some more if I can, because if some of these take off and they need their own pots, I'll need separate pots for them. So I'm really happy with that. I've managed to get so many plants from just routine pruning of the mother plants. So the mother plants are at the back. I'll need to do some deadheading on them. The mother plants will definitely be keeping in the greenhouse a little bit longer. The other plants, the ones I've just potted up, I'll see what the weather does. I might put them inside soon, give them a bit of warmth and possibly some grow lights as well. Although the root systems were good on them all, they've got very little leaf area. They've really been starting to lose a lot of their leaves going into dormancy, and I want them just to bulk up a little bit over winter so they're decent size by spring. So I might put them under grow lamps just for a couple of months, get them going, make sure that they're going to establish in the new compost. And then I'll probably have them in the conservatory over February time, January, February time, when it's at its coldest. And what I'll need to do is I'll probably need to prune some of them as well. So some, for example, this one here, it's quite tall. I really want small bushy plants. I don't want tall leggy plants. So what I'll do in spring is when they put on some good strong growth, I'll cut them all down quite low. That will encourage new shoots from lower down. I'll get a much bushier plant. But that's all for this update. As I say, quite happy with the results. I'll give you guys an update. It'll either be the end of winter when I'm starting to do the first prune on these, or it'll be springtime when I'm planting them up in their final positions.